Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Playoffs, Tony. He hopes he can win a game.
That sounds like a typical Chicago sports fan right there. But, of course, that's former New Orleans Saints coach Jim Mora talking about playoffs. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the reasons where baseball instant replay is a huge problem.
Why is that?
Because we grew up with guys like Billy Martin, Earl Weaver, Lou Piniella coming out of the dugout and challenging the umpires. And it was part of the game. Baseball's a game of entertainment. And now with replay, the guy comes out. He doesn't say anything. He walks slowly. He waits for a replay guy to call him. It's a complete joke. And entertainment is part of baseball. We should have taken away replay and let the managers go at these guys.
Tony Cincotta's got an opinion here. Cardano and Cincotta here with you on the Fantasy Sports Network, guiding you through your fantasy football playoffs. Your daily fantasy lineups, teaching you life's lessons and doling out any advice we can, whether you are listening or not. We're even going to talk about some hot stove baseball today and discuss some of the transactions coming out of the winter meetings in Nashville. Now, if you want to call in, the number is 844-84-FNTSY. That's 844-843-6879. And if you don't want to call in, well, that's still the number. It doesn't change. So without further ado, let me bring back the star of the show because you know how uncomfortable I get with my celebrity status, Mr. Tony Cincotta. Now, Tony's got a problem with the managerial ways of some of these managers here, apparently.
Well, you know what? I like when people argue. I think it's part of the game, like Earl Weaver, Lou Piniella.
That's why you divorced, Tony.
Baseball.
You like when people argue.
Yeah, that's probably it. And, you know, the other thing is the guys that don't want to pick up the phone, 888, whatever the phone number is.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that now we've become so uncommunicative as a society, and everybody's so closed-minded. I think they would rather be on Twitter, and those are the same type of guys. When they walk into a bathroom, there'll be nobody in it, and they won't go to the urinal. They'll go to the stall. Those are the same guys that use Twitter instead of calling on the phone.
Every time I go into the bathroom, I get behind somebody who's got stage fright. And I got to wait my turn. I always get behind that guy in line for some reason. I don't know what it is. But listen, before we get started, Tony and I usually end our shows with a segment we call Out of Bounds, where we discuss and often poke fun at some current events. But I need to get into this right away because I can't believe what I just read before we went on the air here. Tony, you know who Steve Sarkisian is?
Yes, he's the USC head coach who was recently fired because he showed up drunk to work a couple times.
Yeah, so he's no longer the USC head coach.
That's true.
So I was reading as you know, when I was a kid, I wouldn't read it all. Now I like to read everything. So I was reading the LA Times before, and when I was in the bathroom, that's where I do my best thinking. And
Yes.
Steve Sarkisian sued USC for alcoholic discrimination.
Yeah.
Now, how does that work? He's a drunk and he's suing his employer?
What he's saying is basically he has a condition. Much like if you had a guy with cancer, would you be able to fire him because he had cancer?
The guy doesn't go down to the local mart and buy a six-pack of cancer.
I'll tell you the truth, though. I'm on both sides of this. Like, I think that it's hard not to fire him and have repercussions because the bottom line is you did it, but people, I think they get this. This is a sickness. Obviously, let's talk about it, right?
How is being habitually thirsty a sickness?
He's not habitually thirsty.
How does that work?
$30 million, right? He had plenty of warnings. He knew he was going to lose it, and he couldn't stop.
And he was popping pills, too.
Yeah, Josh Gordon. He was going through a divorce. He was depressed. And these were the things that he was using to get rid of his depression. And it was just spiraling out of control. Now, let me ask you a question, though. Shouldn't USC, if you have an employee that has a drug issue or something like this, shouldn't you send him to counseling and keep him there like 60, 90 days instead of firing him?
Well, that's kind of his point in the complaint.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think being habitually thirsty is grounds for a defense. I mean, I'm habitually hungry. You know,
true.
I can't seem to. How do I game the process because of that? I'm going to sue somebody for something there.
I'll tell you what, this guy's going to have no shot at winning. And even if he has the right, or even if he,
Wait, how
even
great
by
would this
law,
be? How great would this be? If
Well,
he
that's
walks
the
into
problem.
If he walks into the courtroom,
no, that's the problem.
hammered.
You can't let him win
If he walks into
because
the courtroom,
everybody.
just like slobbering all over the place, drunk with a bottle in his
Yeah.
hand, just drunk. That would be great, wouldn't it?
I think the guy's, to tell you the truth, I think this is a legitimate thing, and I really think he has a sickness.
Listen,
but you
they should
can't let
stop
him
calling
win.
people drink a lot a sickness. It's being habitually thirsty is not a sickness.
Oh my God, he can't win because then the whole country will be in court. It'll be absolutely insanity.
I guess. And now here's something else I read, and I was on an L.A. Times kick today. I don't know why, but
This guy though, he
Go
had
ahead.
some great speeches when he was drunk. Like he was hammered.
I'm
speaking
sure he's a
to
lot
the-
more fun to listen to. Yeah.
Oh, but for him not to know that
Who's
he was
not?
going
Yeah.
to lose his job was amazing.
All right, so then we have a study done by the journal PLOS Medicine, which is an open access peer review medical journal that publishes human
boy.
studies that enhance the understanding of human health. Okay, now here it is. Lack of sleep can shorten your life. Now I think we probably knew that, right? Everybody, you
Yes.
need sleep. Well, they also found out that laziness can shorten your life. So, you combine those two things, and I'm wondering if, like, I'm the Walking Dead here, because I don't sleep, and I've become pretty lazy. What do you think? Laziness can shorten your life. If you're sitting around, it can shorten your life.
Yeah, I think that it's probably right because you have to keep moving. And you get guys like George Burns that smoked cigars and lasted like 90 years old. They were always working. They're always moving around. They're always hovering their craft. Mother Teresa was always trying to make people better, and she was 100 years old. So I think the whole thing is just keeping busy.
I guess. I don't know. I can't stand in
What do
one
you think?
spot. They have, like, toll collectors or at a cash register. My
yeah.
back and my feet would kill me.
Yeah, the other problem, though, is Frank Shorter turns that whole argument into a disarray because at 47 years old, the marathoner died right there. So he can keep running, Frank Shorter, and he can keep eating fruit, and he's dead, too.
Yeah, some of this stuff is just hereditary. And, of course, you could be
Yeah.
a perfect physical specimen and then just get clobbered by a bus, get annihilated walking across the street, and then where did it get you?
Yeah,
Right?
I always tell people, the greatest thing, I've done a lot of things in my life, but the greatest accomplishment that I've ever achieved is that I outlived Elvis Presley.
Oh, how about that? How old
There
was
you
Elvis?
go.
How old was Elvis when he died?
I believe he was 42.
That's it? Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that young. I had a friend who had, I don't know what you call it, for quadruple bypass surgery. I don't know whether, and so afterwards I was sitting with his wife, and the doctor came in, and they were talking to him about what he should do now going forward and his exercise regimen and stuff. And he told him that he wanted him to exercise 2 hours a day. It didn't have to be strenuous exercise, but he wanted to. And he explained to him that he'd probably add 10 years to his life. So he did some quick math in his head, and he figured out that if he was exercising 2 hours a day, that meant that he was exercising basically 1 day out of the month. Right? So every little more than 2 years, he's exercising a whole month. So, he basically said, listen, I want to live longer, but I don't want to spend like 15% of that time exercising. So,
Yeah,
so I think
that
he
makes
ch-
a lot of sense.
Yeah, he
right?
chose just not to do
You
it.
have to go through there. Yeah, you get this. That would be crazy. You know what would be? Can you imagine that? Like back in the day before there was like Viagra and those other pills. Can you imagine living to 100 and not being able to use that? That would be a downer, right? Would you really want to stay around for a while?
I never thought about that one. Never thought about living to 100.
But if you live to 100, right, and you can't use your most important tool out in the shed, that's a problem.
Yeah, it would be a problem. Who are you going to use it with when you're 100? I mean, if
But
you
there's
use it by
always-
yourself, but whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, but there's always women trying to get in movies.
Yeah, I guess. And one more item here before we
Home movies, I guess. Home movies doesn't
I
count. Like
understand.
they're not going to come over and be there with my great grandchildren, and they don't want to be in those movies.
I think we ought to change the topics. I think what I ought to do. I got one more item to discuss before we get to the fantasy sports portion of the show, and that Crystal Pepsi is returning. That clear soda that tasted like Pepsi. It's making a comeback, and apparently the soda fizzled. Not to use the pun, but among customers who had grown disenchanted with clear sodas in the 90s. Were you disenchanted with clear sodas? Do you drink a lot of soda?
Not only was I not disenchanted, I was just disinterested. And secondly, have you walked around? You live like in New York and New Jersey, and there are a lot of people around. Have you ever been a place and said, God damn it, I miss Crystal Pepsi? Never once have I heard that.
Apparently.
Where is the marketing guys that get paid all this money to think that this is going to come back and take the nation by storm?
Apparently, we must be missing out here, so somebody must have did a study. Listen, I read where they did a $40 million ad budget the first time around. I'm guessing this one's going to be smaller, but it's clear soda. I mean, and that's the catch. Apparently, it tastes just like the other one, I think. I don't know. I don't remember having it.
I don't know. I mean, this is going to be a colossal failure. I gotta believe it's a colossal failure.
All right, we're going to take a short break here while you get to listen to Pat Mayo talk about some of the quarterback situations in Week 12, and then we'll get back with some of the good stuff. We'll be right back.
Winning in the fantasy playoffs means knowing how to assess your matchup. If you're a big favorite, you're going to want to shoot for a high floor pivot. If you need lots of points, gamble on that upside. Just don't be afraid to lose. This is Mayo's Triple Play, Week 14 quarterbacks. As crazy as it sounds, next week against Atlanta is Blake Bortles' worst matchup the rest of the way. And this week, he'll clean up against Indy. And he may set a career best in points in the fantasy finals in New Orleans. But what's even crazier, people still don't respect Bortles as a top 10 option, despite being 9th at quarterback this year. And it's all about attrition, which leads to touchdowns. Bortles is averaging a shade under 40 pass attempts a game, resulting in multiple TD scores in 7 of his last 8. And now he gets the Colts, who haven't allowed fewer than 13 points to the position in any game this season. So Bortles has a built-in floor with all the upside. Be very wary of Drew Brees in Tampa. Road Brees and home Brees, two different guys, regardless of matchup. In his last 3 home games, 22, 31, and 44 points. His road performance this year, 16, 0, 15, 12, 12, and 7. Not good. If there's a better streamer available, and there are, I'm starting them over Drew Brees. Does it shock you to learn Matt Ryan is still 89% owned? Who's playing this guy? Likely not those in the fantasy postseason. But if you manage to squeak in spite of Ryan's awful performance, please cut bait and add someone else now. Not only has Ryan exceeded 20 points once this season, he gets Carolina this week and Week 16. Why start the playoffs in a hole?
I'm Odell Beckham Jr. of the New York Football Giants, and you're watching the Fantasy Sports Network.
Welcome back. Cardano and Cincotta here on the Fantasy Sports Network. This is the portion of the program where we get rid of some of the silliness and give you what you came here for, because I'm feeling at this point that you may be sorry you tuned in. So let's not waste any more time.
They got a lot of good ideas, though.
You think
they got
so?
a lot of good ideas, and they probably feel better about their lives. So we accomplished that.
You know, I just realized I think we had the wrong promo in there. Odell Beckham Jr. said he was watching the Fantasy Sports Network. That was the TV promo. If they're supposed to load the
Yeah, he's good at visualization, so he's okay.
the
there.
radio on. All right, so let's not waste any more of our constituents' time here, Tony. There are some interesting things happening in Nashville, Tennessee, a place that, Tony, you were just this past weekend. You were
Yes.
enjoying yourself.
Yeah, we were there for a big birthday party. One of the SiriusXM producers, Phil Backett, of course, does the Sunday show on SiriusXM from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. But we got out of town right before the winter meeting started for Major League Baseball.
That's probably good for everybody, and everybody's been just interest that you left. Want to mess things up there.
Yeah, you know what? But there's been a lot of money thrown around. I wish I was there for some of that money.
So I saw a great headline. I don't know when this was. Yesterday, I think. Royals second baseman Ben Zobrist decides he's good with just one ring and signs with Cubs. How you like that?
That's kicking the butt. That's amazing. Because you got to look at the Cubs. I think right now in Las Vegas, I believe they're the favorite to win the National League. So that's a big slam in the face.
Yeah, they just got to focus on that pitching here. So what do you make of that move? You know, he did very well for himself in the playoffs. He was obviously in demand here. How do you think he fares there as opposed to where he was in Kansas City? What's the fantasy slant there? He's obviously in a lineup that can really do some damage.
Yeah, so Kansas City plays in the American League. They play in a great pitcher's ballpark, so that hurt a little of production even though they played in the American League. They play on a team that doesn't strike out a ton, and actually the lowest strikeouts in Major League Baseball, a decent batting average, but not a lot of power and not a lot of big runs scored. Now he's going to come over and play in the Chicago Cubs lineup. I'm interested to see where he hits. He's either going to hit second or sixth. I prefer him second because he'll get some RBI opportunities and, of course, be right there for runs scored with Chris Bryant following him and Anthony Rizzo. I like the move from a fantasy standpoint for Ben Zobrist. I think it's a great move for the Chicago Cubs in a baseball perspective because Joe Madden knows everything about this guy. The guy played for him forever. And when Joe Madden had him for him, he played second, short, third, and right field. So he used him all over the place. It'll be interesting to see if he has one position.
Just as a programming note, tomorrow morning, 7:35 on the Fantasy Sports Network, the Roto Experts in the Morning program, we will have Chris Bryant on the show. So how about that? Maybe we'll ask him about
That's
Mr.
amazing.
Zobrist and ask him if he wants him to bat in front of him or behind him. I don't know. We'll see what he says.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not going to affect his fantasy value, but it'll be interesting to see where Chris Bryant actually plays this year. Looking like to me that the Cubs don't have a center fielder at this point, and he would be the center fielder.
Well, listen, you got to get Schwarber out of the outfield, no? I mean,
He has to play the outfield. I was thinking
third
about
base.
it too.
Third base.
I guess.
Why
Yes.
not? Listen, at least if he
you have
misses
that-
it there, he's got somebody behind him.
No, I
To get the
agree.
ball.
I totally agree.
There's
I
a
think
left fielder there.
most teams will play the worst fielder at first base. They can't do that with Anthony Rizzo. Then they put this kid at third base. That's a possibility. He can't play the outfield. You're 100% right. I'm surprised he hasn't been moved.
Listen, at third base, the ball the ball catches you. You don't have much time to make a mistake.
Yeah, you're
you really just
100%
defend
right.
yourself. You catch it or you don't, and that's that. All right. So the Cubs also signed John Lackey to a 2-year contract. What do you think about that?
Yeah, this is a great deal. This is a pitcher's ballpark. People don't know that because they think of Chicago and the wind blowing out. In the last 2 years, the wind have blown out over 70% of the time in Wrigley Field. And then they have changed the environment there with all these new buildings and the way they've put everything that we truly don't know how it'll play next year after some of these changes were done. I think John Lackey's going to come over there and now pitching in the National League. I'm liking him for a 15 or 16 wins because I think it's a quality team. Yeah, and an ERA around 3.5. I like this move.
The Lackster, okay, in Chicago.
I mean, that's a good ball club. The guy pitches all the time. He can win 16 games.
Yeah, with that offense there, if you can kind of just keep them in the game, you got a chance there to get a W. The Cubs were busy. They traded infielder Starlin Castro. Now, to me, they traded him to the Yankees. I thought they would be able to get more than an Adam Warren for him, and a player to be named later. I guess I'd have to see who that player is going to be before I could really grade this thing. But Adam Warren, to me, on a good team, he's a fifth starter, and on a mediocre team, he can be a fourth starter. And I just thought that at 26 years old and 6 years in the business here, and he's proven that he can do the job, that Starlin Castro would command some more. But, that's their problem, I guess. What's Starlin Castro's prospects here in the Yankees uniform?
The big problem, I think, is when the Chicago Cubs, they had something, a gluttony of prospects that played the middle infield positions, that teams just wouldn't give them anything because they knew they had to eventually clear one of these guys.
It's a good point.
So you look at Castro. Yeah, so Castro leaves the National League, comes over to the American League. He goes into a good offensive ballpark in Yankee Stadium. He's had some discipline problems, and I just hope he stays focused. Can go because this is a 20 home run guy at shortstop. If everything clicks for him, he's a 20 home run guy. And I think now he's going to move up into the top 5 shortstops playing in Yankee Stadium. He was with a good offense with the Cubs, but I think that people look at the American League game, and a lot will depend on where he gets in the batting order. I think he's going to play every day. And Warren's interesting to me. He pitched 131 innings last year. He had a K per 9 of 7. He had an ERA of 3.29, which is very respectable in the American League. Now he comes over, and he goes over to the National League, and we're looking at a kid that has an opportunity as a fifth starter to go out there. He doesn't overpower anybody. He throws 92 miles an hour. 44% of his pitches are fastballs, and then he throws a slider. I think it was a good move for both teams, to tell you the truth.
I wasn't thinking of that about the backlog of middle infielders they had there. I kept thinking to myself, how come the Mets, they desperately need a middle infielder? How come they're not trading one of their pitchers for him? But like you just said, I guess teams knew they didn't have to give up a frontline starter or something like that because they were going to have to move something. That was a really astute observation by you.
Because I think that the Cubs could have got more back for Baez. But
he's even younger. Yeah,
he's younger. He's got more potential from a home run. The strikeouts are going to be a problem in his career, and I think that he would have been a home run thing. But it looks like they decided to keep him.
Well, yeah, they certainly have a heck of an offense there. All right, how about this? Shelby Miller was traded from Atlanta to Arizona for a fan falling from the stands to be named later. Now, what? They didn't get anything for him that I can see. They got left-handed pitcher Gabe Spire. I don't know. Dansby Swanson. Are you a Dansby Swanson fan? And he's the guy.
He's the guy, though. He's the guy. Supposedly, if this trade works, he's the guy that.
But he's a shortstop, right?
Yeah, he can be the elite player. He's the guy that they wanted in the deal. So it's interesting to see. Most people don't like the trade out there in the baseball market, but that guy's the guy that's the difference maker.
But Atlanta has a shortstop. And the guy he's a human vacuum cleaner. Atlanta.
No, he's not. What they went out and they made a move and they acquired Eric Ibar. Andrelton Simmons is now in the Angels uniform.
Okay.
So Ibar now becomes a stopgap.
Okay, I missed that one. When did that happen?
Yeah, so that was that was 2 months ago before anybody started paying attention. Now
I wasn't paying attention. Okay.
This is interesting. Now, we all think Shelby Miller's a great pitcher, and I told people to draft him this year because I thought he would turn it around. If you look what he did with the Cardinals, right? His 2014 year, he had a 6.25 K per 9, which was not good, 10-9 record, and a 3.74. 2013, he dominated the league at 21 years of age. He was 15-9 with an 8.78 ERA, 3.06. So last year, he started out the season pitching well, and I could tell he was going to be in trouble because his strikeouts were only 7.50, but his walks were 3.0, and there's only a 4 difference there. That ERA at 3.02, I thought was quite lucky. His FIP was 3.45. His xFIP was 4.07. I think we're looking at a pitcher that's going to have a 4 ERA this year. Pitching in Arizona. Atlanta's a great ballpark. I think he's going to have a 4 ERA.
I always thought he did a good job of keeping the ball down, but to me, he always seemed like a better major league pitcher than he did a fantasy pitcher. And that
last year was
because
the
of the
first
strikeouts.
year. Yeah, last year was the first year, actually, he kept the ball down. He kept the ball 47% ground balls. Prior to that, 39%, 38, and 42. And the other thing is his K per 9 rate was a great 6.4.
Yep. Let's move on to the Mets and the Pirates. The Mets did not get Ben Zobrist, who I believe was their first choice, and they ended up getting Neil Walker for John Neese. I'd have to believe both of these guys are going to be in the starting lineups. Neese in the starting rotation for the Pirates, and Walker will probably be the starting second baseman for the Mets, I would think.
This is a great move for the Mets because, like you were talking about earlier, they got all these pitches. Well, they gave up a guy that's not even going to be in the rotation if they brought him back. And they get Neil Walker, who's a pretty good second baseman across Major League Baseball. He didn't play in a great hitter's ballpark. Pittsburgh, much like Citi Field, one of the worst hitter's ballpark. Last year he had 16 home runs and he hit 269. You go back 1 year in 2014, he had 23 home runs and a 271 batting average. They take Todd Walker. It's not going to cost him a ton of money. He has $8 million contract. You saw Mike Pelfrey get $8 million. This dude got $8 million, and he's got a free agent after this year. This is a great, great move by the organization.
Well, here's the one thing, though. Against as a right-handed batter, he's hit 237. 276 is a left-handed batter. So, I don't know. Well, I guess, the Major League batting average is not that far off
around
from that.
250.
Yeah. So
you
and he does have some pop. He does have some pop, although nothing from the right side. He hit 0 home runs from the right side.
If you go back to where you were a year ago when he put up that big number, he was 269 versus righties, and he was 280 versus lefties. And versus lefties, he only had 2 home runs. He had 21 from the other side of the plate.
Oh, come on.
I swear to God.
How does that happen? Well, to be fair, last year as a right-handed batting, he only got up 93 times. It's just kind of interesting, really.
Yeah, he had 21 home runs against righties in 2014.
How about this? I don't know if this was just a formality because you had to kind of make a PR move here, but the Dodgers signed Chase Utley to a 1-year contract. What do you think about that?
I don't know what the hell they're doing in L.A. They've got money to burn, and yet they let Zach Greinke go, and they sign this dude, Chase Utley. They go out and get a closer who might have tried to kill somebody in his hotel room, and now they don't know what's going on there. But they already had a closer that was good in Kenley Jansen. Like, this is the oddest offseason of a team that was a top 5 team in the league to win the World Series. I have no idea what they're doing.
Well, now break this down for me. The Rockies.
He's 36.
Yeah,
he's 36.
If they needed to slide in and break up a double play, they got a guy. So
they got a guy. They had 2 teams last year. He hit 8 home runs and hit 212. What is the fascination?
Oh, listen, that's 8 more home runs than you and I hit. So he's a good clubhouse guy. So the Rockies signed.
That's it.
Clubhouse guy. Jason Mott and Chad Qualls, who will probably both be closing there next year, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Huh?
So, Jason Mott's interesting. This guy was a guy that could close before. He threw 97 miles an hour in the St. Louis organization. He had some arm problems. He come back last year, threw 95 miles an hour, shocking a lot of people. And he had good stuff. So he'll end up being the closer in Colorado. Adam Montevano's the guy they want, but he had arm surgery. He won't be back till the end of the year, so he's not going to have that opportunity. And then Chad Qualls, every single team that signs this guy, signs him to be the closer if everything else fails. So he's basically the guy. When everything fails, he gets to be the closer.
All right, and let's move on to the Cardinals, who traded John Jay to San Diego for Jed Jerko and a little bit of skidole, some cash. So is Jerko going to start every day at second base? Where is he going to play? What position is he going to play?
This is a confusing thing because I'm hearing that Jerko could play third base and Matt Coppin, the third baseman, could play second base. And I'm interested to see how that plays out with these two guys because Jerko predominantly has been used at second base throughout his career, so I'm looking forward to see this. People look at Jed Jerko and they see failure. And I don't know if last year was a bad year, actually. I think it was a great year for him. He had 247 with 16 home runs in Petco Park. That's pretty good. And we talked about it. Major League Baseball batting average in the 250 range. The average batting, he was at 247, and he gets 16 home runs from a middle infielder. I think this guy's actually got a bad name. Now, if he wanted to do better, what we need him to correct is his strikeouts. He's striking out almost 24% of the time, and part of the reason is because he only walks 5% of the time, so he's swinging at everything.
My recollection is he fared pretty well in the second half of the season last year.
Yes, he put it together. He gets sent to the minors, and he took it personal. I wish everybody did that. Like if we sent Scott Engel back to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, would he come back with vengeance?
He probably would. It's pretty interesting. I never thought about that.
We're gonna
All right,
Scotty, get ready to get that Canadian map out.
Yeah.
I mean Connecticut map out. Get the Connecticut map out.
Bristol. He lived in Bristol at one time. He worked at ESPN. He lived in Bristol.
Yeah, that's true.
The Red Sox, they signed your boy David Price to a 7-year contract, which I don't know. I make a big deal about they'll never get their money's worth out of it. You don't seem to care, but
No, you guys
listen, from a
crazy.
fantasy standpoint, you're right. It doesn't matter. I'm just looking at this year. But
every one of you guys, do you pay anything in these contracts? It's coming out of your pocket. It drives me insane. And I still haven't figured out the whole.
It's troublesome. You should do it right. Look at CC Sabathia. Look at CC Sabathia. Now, he did phenomenal in the beginning of the contract. And here's the thing. If they would have signed him for 5 years instead of 7 and still paid him the same amount of money, I would have been okay with it because he would be off the payroll and they wouldn't feel like they have to play him because he's not there anymore. But now because he's there, they're gonna. I mean, I understand they could cut him and just eat it, but they're not going to do that for whatever reason.
Well, that's the crazy part, right? They could cut him and just eat it. He was killing the play. I always say this, and all you people out there that are listening. So you freak out about David Price getting $200 million. $200 million through a life of a contract, 70 years. 70 years is a ton for a pitcher, and you just never know what could happen. So it's a huge risk by the Boston Red Sox. But I look at it like this: is they just gave the guy $200 million. It doesn't matter how many years. It's 7 years, right? Well, here's the thing: you buy a car, you get a 5-year loan. It's the same payment every month. That car is not worth anything in the 5th year, but you keep paying it, and you have to pay it. That's the bottom line. It's spread out over 5 years, spread out over 7 years, and you just get the guy. David Price has to win one World Series, and it's worth it.
Yeah, he's got to win one playoff game somehow.
That's what the baffling thing to me is that an 0-7 pitcher in the playoffs with an ERA over 5 can command $200 million. Where have our minds gone when we give out these contracts?
You know what? I do have to say, he every once in a while he screws you in DFS where he has a hiccup, but he's a fantasy stud. He can be counted on more often than not during the regular season. The Red Sox.
Let me ask you a question, though. One more question on David Price. David Price was thought to want to go to St. Louis because St. Louis was the #1 city in the world for dogs to live in, that they had a lot of dog things. And he loves his animal and he loves his dog. Were you surprised he changed his mind on his dog?
He doesn't really love his dog then, does he?
Well, I thought about it, though. If he had made like $50 more million, he probably could buy whatever they have, I guess, there.
Yeah, but the dog won't have the same friends.
That's true.
You
know what's funny?
He just sold out his dog.
I was thinking about this. If you are what you eat, right? You know the old saying, you are what you eat?
Yeah.
Then my dog would actually be my neighbor's dog.
Well, how do you feel? Oh, good.
You're always licking each other.
All right. Left-hander Wade Miley and Jonathan Oro went to Seattle from the Red Sox for Carson Smith and Ronis Elias. I guess Wade Miley is the guy that we're focusing on there?
Yeah, Wade Miley's going to be a good 5th starter in this ballpark. He goes from a good hitter's ballpark in Fenway Park to Seattle, which is one of a great predominantly pitcher. He takes the ball. He had a great second half. He was absolutely brutal the first half in Boston. So I think it's a good move for their part, but there's a lot of GMs out there wondering how the hell the Red Sox get Carson Smith involved in this deal. A lot of people believe Carson Smith's an elite relief pitcher, and so it won't help you fantasy-wise because he won't get the saves because Craig Kimbrell is there for the Boston Red Sox. But he was supposedly up for the job in Seattle, and there was 3 Seattle pitchers that were up for the job as closer. One was Carson Smith, who looked electric last year, and then secondly, Tom Williamson, who started out in the year of the rotation but had closing experience in the past. And then they bring in Joaquin Benoit. Benoit's the last guy standing, so he's going to be the Seattle closer.
Is Benoit the guy who wears the hat crooked? That's not Benoit.
No, that's like the other 28 pitchers in Major League Baseball. Like, when you say that, how do I exclude or not even think about CC Sabathia?
Well, he was the first one to do it, which I don't
like
get.
He's the king.
I just feel like running out there and straightening out his hat. I would be like Morgana, the kissing bandit, just run around the field. But when I get there, I just want to straighten his hat out.
Why do they? I don't know if that's like symbolism for something. I have no idea, because
that had to happen by like mistake. That's how it gets started. Like somehow somebody got bumped and their head went that, and they saw themselves in the mirror and the hat was on crooked, and they say, "Hey, let's leave it that way." Who would put it on that way on purpose? All right, the
guy's a bad mirror.
Yeah, I guess. The Royals signed 6'9" Chris Young to a 2-inch contract, to a 2-year contract. He can't break a plane of glass, but he can get through 5 innings. I don't know if he's fantasy relevant. Is he fantasy relevant? I can't imagine anybody kept Chris Young, although maybe they saw him in the playoffs and they said, "Oh, I'm going to keep this guy."
Yeah, he's fantasy relevant in like leagues that we're playing now with these NFBC 50-round drafts. We don't pick up guys during the year. He's relevant there. He's relevant in AL only. And I think if you played in a 15-team league, he'd be fringe worthy. Here's the whole thing is that if I look at last year, this is a guy that's not a young pitcher, and he had one of his best seasons the last 2 years. And it's mind-boggling how good he's become with such little talent. He's 6'9". He doesn't strike anybody out. He puts balls in play. He's not gifted athletically out in the field. And yet, somehow the last 2 years, he's put it all together.
Yeah, he has. Well, good for him. He got another 2
years.
He
was 11-6 this year, right? His ERA was 3.06, hugely respectable in the American League. And he struck out only 6.06.
He gets hurt a lot, too.
His FIP was 4.52. His xFIP was 5.33. And stolen bases, runners on base.
Yeah, he's asking for
80%.
trouble. He's doing smoke and mirrors.
80% of the time. And his ground ball rate is only 25%. They're rocketing balls to the outfield on this dude, and they're catching him right now.
Well, they have fantastic outfield. That helps, too. They cover a lot of ground.
Yes, they definitely do.
The Tigers signed the guy who licks himself. He's tall, too. He's like 6'7", Mike Pelfrey. Now, he doesn't throw any harder than Young. Well, maybe he does throw harder than Young, but it must be straight. He's never done anything. Mike Pelfrey did a 2-year contract. And also, Jared Saltalamacchia, who the Marlins jettisoned and then was picked up. Who picked him up last year in the middle of the season? Arizona?
He went and played for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
So, now, I always thought Saltalamacchia had some pop in his bat. But you admire Saltalamacchia for other reasons, I think.
Yeah, first of all, let me tell you about Mike Pelfrey. This is amazing to me. This is why I think when people think, "Oh, I play fantasy baseball, I know more than Steve Phillips, a former GM, or whatever GM out there." This dude might be the worst pitcher in the history of baseball. And I'm not just saying that and I'm not throwing it out there. I actually have numbers that can prove that. How do you become a Major League Baseball pitcher and strike out 4.70 a K per 9? It's the lowest K per 9 rate of any starting pitcher that has enough innings in Major League Baseball. Then he walks 2.46, so a +2. There are guys, this is like crazy what I'm telling you. These are crazy numbers of pitching to contact. He's going to have a lot of big innings, and he's going to get people killed out there. This is not going to work out well.
Listen to this. Here's what a scout told me when he was here with the Mets. I had a scout tell me that Mike Pelfrey is the least intimidating 6'7" person that you've ever seen on the mound. He should be putting fear into throwing fastballs high and tight. He lets go of the ball. He's only 50 feet away by the time he lets go of it. This thing should come flying by you, and you should be fearing for your life. Nothing.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Jared Saltamarki going over to Detroit. I think it looks like right now, based on the catches there, he'll win that starting job. If he does, he's going to get hit 10 home runs, and he's going to hit 220, and he's going to cost you as a second catch in batting average, but you'll be able to make up home runs with 10 home runs. Now, Saltamarki is absolutely amazing to me because he's done what I think a lot of people wanted to do in their lives.
What's that? He
actually
converted
married
a
his-
lesbian?
No, he married his gym teacher. Everybody went to school and thought they had that one hot teacher.
I wanted to do that
He
too.
married her,
Yeah.
right? He married her.
Did you think my goal was that wasn't your goal? In high
No.
school?
You got to have achievable goals.
That's not achievable. All right, the Braves signed Gordon Beckham, who I don't even know where he plays anymore. He came up. He was a fantastic prospect. Everybody in my auction league, everybody was shot their wad on them, their fab money, spent everything, and then he turned out to be nothing. Looks like Tarzan plays like Jane, but he's with the Braves now. I'm guessing he's going to be a reserve somewhere in the infield.
Yeah, so basically he can play second base, he can play third base, he plays some corner outfield, but he played in Chicago, which was a top 4 offensive ballpark, and he couldn't hit there, and he didn't provide power. Now going to Atlanta, which is a pitcher-friendly ballpark.
Remember they used to call Atlanta in Fulton County Stadium the launching pad?
Yep, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
That was back in the day when the old Hank Aaron would run around and try to, walk around on the bases.
Yeah.
Did you like Hank Aaron as a Milwaukee Brewer or Atlanta Brave better?
I only knew him as a Brave.
Did he play for the Brewers?
Yeah.
Oh, I imagine that.
He did, but the Brewer, it was the Milwaukee Braves, though, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's why I got confused. It was the Milwaukee Braves, yeah. Why? Do you think all these teams should just stay in one place, make it easier for the rest of us?
They probably should. You know who I used to like on the Braves? I don't know if I'll give you couple of hits. Center fielder, I think he won 2 MVPs. I know he won at least one.
Otis Nixon.
No.
He looked like an Indian.
Dale Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves Dale Murphy. In fact, the ballpark out here, the Jacksonville Suns are a Double-A affiliate of the Miami Marlins, so this makes no sense at all. But every year they have Dale Murphy Day out here.
There you go. Maybe he's from there.
I don't believe he is either.
He's a nice guy. What the heck,
That's what I think it is. Everybody says that. I think he's just a nice guy and coming around and having a day for himself.
Yeah. All right, the Blue Jays signed Josh Tolley because they had to rush before Christmas and do that for some reason. They needed a backup catcher. The Cubs signed left-handed pitcher Clayton Richard, which is kind of interesting. The Cubs are kind of active, and I don't know. I got to give Theo Epstein the benefit of the doubt. He seems to know what he's doing. But what do you think about Clayton Richard?
I don't. I think this is a guy that's probably not going to make the rotation. Start the year in the minors. And then if there's a rotation spot that needs filling, to bring somebody in, he's there. But he's not a long-term answer.
Okay, Colin Cowgill, another, call him extracurricular signing. He'll be a 4th outfielder, I guess, for the Indians?
Yeah, he's a guy that can make some plays, and he just doesn't play every day. You'd get him 3 times a week, and then 3 times a week he'd be out of your lineups. So he's a guy that's very troublesome in that regard.
Seattle signed Norichika Aoki to a 1-year contract. Do you like Norichika? He makes contact.
No. This is baffling to me. They got another slap hitter this season, Leonis Martin, except Leonis Martin can steal bases.
Right.
Aoki, when he first came up, they thought he would be able to steal bases, but he never really has put it together.
They also signed Adam Lind. So is he going to play first base?
He's going to play first base against right-handed pitching. This is a guy that people don't get it. He hits 280 against righties. He has huge power numbers, and he's absolutely on a winning team every year. He's been in like 4 or 5 World Series. He just gets it done, my man. Adam Lind, you got to put him in your lineups.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Thursday night game between the Vikings and the Cardinals and how that should play into your fantasy playoffs and daily fantasy lineups. But first, here's Pat Mayo with some opinions on the Week 14 tight ends.
Another week, another round of tight end injuries. Vance McDonald, Vernon Davis, and Crockett Gilmore, all down. At least they'll be easier to replace than Gronk and Graham. This man's triple play, TEs, streaming Ds. All of a sudden, Austin Seferian-Jenkins emerged from his injury coma and played Sunday against the Falcons. Now, ASJ only managed to play around 25% of snaps, but he saw 6 targets anyway, with 3 coming in the red zone. They want to use him, and I'd expect him to up that snap count dramatically this week. And against the Saints, it could be a points bonanza. If you're scrounging on the waiver wire, scrolling through the free agent list to find a big man to plug into your lineup the first leg of the fantasy playoffs, stop on Will Tye. Filling in for a banged-up Larry Donnell the last 3 games, Ty's quietly averaging 67 yards a contest, never dropping below 56 yards. It's not much, but it's a base, and one that's widely available. And if you're shooting for a bit more upside, Blake Bell may get the nod with the Niners with Garrett Selleck out and Vance McDonald doubtful. He's worth a look. You really need to be planning out your defenses this week and for the rest of the playoffs. If you're not managing like you're gonna win a championship, you're not gonna win a championship. And weirdly enough, the Chiefs' DST is still marginally available, around 35% of leagues, and they need to be owned. They go Chargers, Baltimore, Cleveland to end the season. Those are all must starts.
So we're going through the draft last night, and I don't know why I'm alone on an island here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but
You don't know why?
Blake Bortles is a very good quarterback.
What do you base that on, though?
Marquise Lee, I don't know, his college career, his high draft.
Yeah, but
Did you draft Justin Blackman too?
Yeah,
No, I don't think that's going to work. That one's not going to fly.
we had a lot of guys that have been drafted early at the quarterback position that didn't make it in the National Football League. And in fact, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think 3 years prior to that, selected Blaine Gabbert, number 10 overall.
All right. You can't cherry pick examples like that.
Forte, running back of the Chicago Bears, and you're listening to the Fantasy Sports Network.
All right, we're back once again. Cardano and Cincotta here on the Fantasy Sports Network, and it is time to talk some Week 14 fantasy football. But first, we heard that little piece just before with Drew Dinkmeyer, Tony Yu, and myself kind of ambushing Nando there and his love for Blake Bortles and some of the Jaguars skill players. Let's just talk briefly about this because do we all owe him an apology? That was recorded before the season started.
Yeah.
They all did quite well for themselves. The two Allens and Mr. Bortles there put together quite a season here so far.
Yeah, if you look at it, Nando was right on the money. Blake Bortles is the 9th best fantasy quarterback in the National Football League at this point. Now, he's had some interceptions that could hold him back going forward, but we've seen guys like Brett Favre throw interceptions. We've seen guys like Dan Marino throw interceptions. He's going to be okay. The kid's going to play, and he's going to ride it out the rest. Now, I'm interested to see what you guys used last week when you couldn't use them, how you go about that with the quarterback situation there.
Let me ask you to rank where they stand with some of the other elite threesomes in the league. I'm thinking specifically about the Oakland Raiders threesome, their quarterback and their 2 big receivers. The New York Jets, those are the ones that come to mind. Where do they rank as a threesome if you were going to look to stack them in daily fantasy? If you wanted to go with actually 2 wide receivers, I actually done that a couple times. I did it once with the Raiders and once with the Jets. I haven't done it with the Jaguars, where I had both the receivers and the quarterback, and I cashed both times.
Yeah, I think you can go, especially the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to play with Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown.
Oh, good.
So those guys can come into play. You can do it more and more. It's amazing to me with the amount of points being scored in the National Football League, and it changed up so much. But back to your original question, I like it like this. I think the top flight is Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. When you look at those two wide receivers and what they've done in career and at a professional level, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's adequate enough to get them. So in a one-year situation, I would go there. And then I would go with the Jacksonville Jaguars in that one. And then the Oakland Raiders with Crabtree and Amari Cooper. I'm still not all the way in on the quarterback situation in Oakland. I just look at that and I'm saying, he's got to get the ball down the field more. Amari Cooper had one target in the red zone. There's things there that still worry me. But it's a second-year quarterback. He's going to get better, and he's gotten better leaps and bounds in 1 year. So for me, it's going to be the Jets number 1, Jaguars 2, and then Oakland 3.
All right, let's go over this Thursday night game, the Vikings and the Cardinals. There's a 46.5 total. This line is moving, Tony. The Cards are now an 8-point favorite. We've got Carson Palmer, who's second in the NFL with 29 Ts and a passer rating of 106.3. But you're kind of, I don't know, last time I heard you talk about him, you were a little down on him here. What's the story of Palmer?
I'm not down on Carson Palmer, the player. I'm down on the Arizona offense and its passing game because it's truly a running game. Carson Palmer has 29 touchdown passes, and it's absolutely amazing because he has the 12th most passes in the league. He has the 12th most passing attempts, and he has the second most touchdowns. That's amazing.
Yeah, but they're the NFL's top-rated offense. They ranked up 524 yards this past week.
Right. And look at the running back situation. You saw Chris Johnson play well. Now David Johnson's come in and he's doing everything. The guy's got 9 touchdowns, and he was in a backup role for 11 of those weeks. So that's how good they run the ball, and they feature the running backs there. I think he is the guy that's the strongest play in this contest. If you look at what Arizona does to distribute the ball, he's going to get the ball 20 times between the passing game and the running game in this contest. And David Johnson, to me, is the number 1 player on either side in this game.
Yeah, but are you suggesting that Carson Palmer is the Tyler Eifert of quarterbacks? Is he all touchdowns and nothing in between? That's all he's just a touchdown?
That's a great analogy. And there's been times in the year where I was burnt, not because Carson Palmer didn't play well. You know, he would throw 300 yards and get 3 touchdowns. That's a good day, right? If you take that. If I said, hey, you can have 24 points right away. But the way the NFL has changed, we got Jameis Winston throwing 5 touchdown passes against the Philadelphia Eagles and putting up 41 fantasy points. I'm just saying that he's not that great, Carson Palmer, because they don't throw the ball enough.
All right, so David Johnson, he's apparently he's the guy. He's one of the most popular people in fantasy these days. I haven't looked at the price yet on daily fantasy. Do you happen to know where he's priced on the sites this week?
Yeah, he's $4,800 on DraftKings, which is up a little bit, but still relatively cheap when you look at guys like Adrian Peterson at $7,700.
So I guess Kerwin Williams, not enough touches for you.
No.
Michael Floyd, John Brown, and Larry Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald garners the most targets, obviously, not last week. Well, maybe he did last week. He did. Floyd and Brown caught 13 passes, Fitzgerald 8, but he only had 59 yards. So is there any of those 3 that you like this week?
I think that if you look at a yearly league, you can play John Brown, and you're hoping he is that big threat, and he did it last week. He could do it again. I think in a daily, paying you can pay $3,400. You can get him on one of the sites out there. Then you take a shot because he's the deep guy in this offense, and he gets the end zone and makes plays. Larry Fitzgerald, I'm not excited about. You're talking about 8 catches, 54 yards. That's not what I want. And Fitzgerald's guys, that's the possession receiver. I'm going elsewhere.
So let's talk a little bit about the Vikings defense, who Carson Palmer and David Johnson and the receivers are going to go up against. The Vikings defense has allowed the 4th fewest points in the game, 19.3, and they own the 6th ranked passing defense in the NFL, although that didn't show last week. But last week, even though they're stout against the run, the Seahawks ran for 173 yards against them. Does that portend well for David Johnson, or was that an anomaly? What do you think here?
those numbers are bukkake because you look at it, they had a defensive lineman, a top defensive lineman out, top linebacker out, and top defensive back out.
Yeah, but I think they're all going to be out this week.
They'll all be out this week, so forget those numbers. And
just
that's
last
the
week's
problem
numbers
there.
count then.
Yeah, last week's numbers are definitely in play, and David Johnson becomes there, and it's going to be tough. Minnesota played so well at the beginning of the year and try to hang on a playoff spot with them in Green Bay tied and going at it down the stretch.
2 points for you for using bukkake in a fantasy football context. It's the first time I heard that. just pointing that out. All right, Adrian Peterson. He is still the NFL's leading rusher, even though he ran for 18 yards last week. He's got 1,182 yards. But he wasn't happy with only carrying the ball 8 times last week, which is the third lowest attempts of his career. He went so far as to call out his head coach, Mike Zimmer, and say to the media that he was out-coached. So I'm going to assume you're going to tell me that means he's a superstar, he's complaining, he wants the ball, he's going to get the ball this week.
Yeah, we see it time and time again, especially when you go after the coach and tell him he's out-coached. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because Arizona's 4th best team against the run, so I don't think it's a great matchup for Adrian Peterson. I think they try to get a ball through the passing game. They'll have very limited success. I'm looking for Adrian Peterson to get out of this game anywhere from 75 to 90 yards in this contest.
Now, Adrian Peterson, if you own him in season long, is he somebody that you ever sit because of matchup?
No, I never do. And I go back and forth on if it's the right move or not, but I consistently put my top players, my elite players in no matter what the situation. And we had a situation that, you look at Tom Brady. He was missing all his wide receivers playing the Denver Broncos. And there were people that sat Tom Brady out, and he came back with 3 touchdowns. So I look at it like this, is that the elite players can beat the good players on the other team, and sometimes you just have to go with them.
Is Todd Gurley an elite player, and would you sit him?
Jeez, this is a guy.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, it's Todd Gurley.
He was going to be the first pick in the draft, right?
Yeah.
He was going to be the number 1 pick in 2016's draft. That's all by the wayside. I look at it like this. The St. Louis Rams are just doing nothing offensively. They've given up. They have coaches clearing out desks, and it's insane what's going there. I would still play Gurley in this one, but I'm a little hesitant. I'm a little concerned.
All right, the Cardinals' defense is ranked 4th overall with 316.8 yards allowed per game. They held the lowly Rams to 9 first downs and 212 yards last week, and they shut down Todd Gurley. I think he had about 60 yards, 65, 66 yards. So, the Vikings going to be able to move the ball at all? How about Kyle Rudolph? Now, he set new career highs with 106 receiving yards on 6 catches against Green Bay on the 22nd of November. And then the following week, he had 7 catches, a season high, in Atlanta on the 29th. And then last week, diddly squat, 3 receptions for 13 yards. He does have a league high, team high 4 touchdowns. Is Teddy Roosevelt, can he get him the ball or no?
Did you call him Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt.
I like that name, actually. That's very good.
Yeah.
You should
I stole that. No, that wasn't mine. That was, I don't know who, I stole that from somebody. Might have been Mayo. It had to be Mayo.
Oh, Mayo.
I don't know. I really, that was last year. I got that.
No, this is something you absolutely have to pass on. You can't partake in any of this. If you're out for having a good time and want to watch the game and put a player in, that would be the only excuse to do it.
All right, so you don't like Roosevelt. What about Stephon Diggs? You have any interest in Stephon Diggs this week?
No, Stephon Diggs is going to go against Patrick Peterson one-on-one, and Peterson will shut him down. I like Stephon Diggs as a player. I think he continues to grow, but just not this week.
You mean he's going to get taller?
Yeah, yeah. We say so many stupid things in life. He continues to grow. He's going to get taller. We're under the weather. We're under the weather every day. It doesn't matter how we feel. We're under the weather every single day.
There's a 100% chance of weather this week. Let me ask you, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. If I was in Vegas or I was on game
46.5. You're thinking under the total.
Yes, I believe that the Arizona defense will make it tough on Minnesota, and then I look for the Arizona team to get the ball early, see Carson Palmer throw the ball, and then try to wind down the game through the running game.
Really? So what is your final prediction for this game?
I believe the Minnesota Vikings will not get into the end zone. And
Wow.
I'm looking at something like a 28-3 game.
Interesting. Well, you heard it here if you want to go to Vegas and do whatever. All right, that's all for today, folks. I'd like to point out.
Vegas, you get hot dogs at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, yep. We've had, Tony, no animals were harmed in the creation of this broadcast. Very important to note. So for Tony Cincotta, I'm Mike Cardano, wishing you well in your fantasy playoff rounds. And as always, if you are looking for advice, do not tweet to either Tony or I, because that'll be a complete waste of time. We will not be answering your questions. Ain't that right, Tony?
Oh, absolutely not. We got guys that do that and do it well.
Yep, you guys want to send your tweets to Nando DeFino at Nando DeFino. He loves to help the listeners out, and no doubt he will provide you with some sound advice. So good luck to all, and have a wonderful evening.